Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traben, and in this video, I'm making a book tag based off of my kids' home movie. As some of you may know, my wife recently started up her own booktube channel, Amanda Should Be Reading. As a result, we've become a household not only of book readers and book lovers, but booktubers, and our children are very much interested in that and very much big fans of our work. They always want to see my videos when I post them, and they want to make videos of their own. The other day, after filming my how to read book tag video, my son and daughter sat down and filmed their own video with their own random questions that they decided they were going to talk about. And so now I'm taking those questions and I'm making my own tag. We've got 7 questions, starting with question number 1.
First question is, do you have a silly book in your house?
I do have a silly book in my house, and that book would be The Battle of the Linguist Mages by Scott O'Moore. I did a full review of this book last year, and my big takeaway was that this is one of the most bombastic, insane books, but kind of lacks a little bit on the story department. If you're just looking for insane concepts, though, this is something you should definitely check out. It features RPG elements from a game bleeding over to the real world. It has to do with the power of linguistics, the way in which you voice things, giving them power and making magic real. Also, central to the conceit of the book is the idea that punctuation are extraterrestrial beings from the world of our imaginations that are coming into our world, and there's a war between some of them. It's absolutely wild and very difficult to express just how crazy this book is. Through the power of linguistics and through the power of their voice, just manifest weapons out of nowhere. And it really does take this initial concept of this RPG that is basically designed. It's like a what is it? Polybus arcade machine. This idea of like this video game designed to find the battle mages. So they have this RPG where this character is the #1 player in it, and it's all music focused and audio focused, and it's to find the people who are adept at this kind of thing, and it goes into crazy cults, these extraterrestrial beings that are the punctuation. Like, that is not a concept that humanity created. It is something that comes from outside of our world. Absolutely bonkers. Would definitely recommend if you just want a wild ride of a book. That brings us to question number 2.
Next question is, do you have another book that kind of looks the same in one of your old books?
This was actually a really fun exercise to go through, to try to find books that look similar but are not similar in theme, or are using the same cover artist. I felt like that would be too easy. To say A Venom Dark and Sweet looks like To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods is kind of obvious because it's the same artist. So I went through a bunch of my books. I actually pulled up Goodreads and was scrolling through my books to try to find ones that had a similar aesthetic, just incidentally. I also didn't think it would be fun to say like all the Dresden books look alike, or that Dresden books look like the Kate Richardson books, because they're both urban fantasies from Tor that are trying to capitalize on a similar aesthetic. What I did find, though, is a series of books in which a hole is being punched through something. So we have the memory box here, where we have a box being ripped open into this void with the title in it. I did not care for the memory box. I gave it 2 stars, but it has this look to it. And we also have Library at Mount Char. This is one of my favorite books. I think this is another really crazy fantasy book. But we have, again, this torn away edge gazing into a space with the title and library that is the central focus of the book. And we also have Steelheart, which is a little less obvious, like a little more difficult to see, but we again have torn away edges into a space with the title. So I just thought it was actually a really fun thing to look through and try to find some aesthetic matching with my books that was not as obvious, or not just because it's part of the same genre. A fun exercise to go through for sure. Question number 3 is,
does your family choose an extra book?
I think this one requires a little bit more explanation in that when we read at night, my daughter gets to pick some books that she's going to read. She gets to pick some books that we are going to read, and then we pick an extra book. That is, we pick a book that we're going to read to her because we want to read it, not because it's something that she wants to read. And we do this primarily because we found that she tends to want to read the same books over and over again, and we're not getting a lot of the variety. Plus, we just want to introduce her to some cool new books. And so this gives us the opportunity to at least get one a night that's our choice and that we can introduce her to. So the way I interpreted this question is, what is a book that someone else in my family has recommended to me and I've picked up and really enjoyed? And so for that, I'm going to talk about Finlay Donovan is Killing It. This is another one I read over a year ago, but really enjoyed the premise of this book. It's partially a murder mystery kind of thing, almost like detective fiction in a way. It has at times the feeling of your classic noir type stories, but it's predicated on what's almost a comedy staple of someone overhearing a conversation and getting the wrong impression and thinking that this person is someone different than they really are. So someone hears Finlay Donovan talking to her agent, because she's a writer, and she's talking about the murder mysteries that she writes, and someone thinks that she's a hitman and asks her to, asked to put a hit out on someone. The comedy stylings of this, the coincidences that just pile up on each other, coupled with her roommate, who I think was one of my favorite characters, completely buys into this and is encouraging, yeah, let's go do these things, let's go do crimes, let's go investigate. And she's really into it, this will make your life more exciting. It was a lot of fun. I've not read any of the follow-up books yet, though. I've heard that book 2 kind of rehashes the same plot, and that's one of the detriments of the series, is that it's a little bit cyclical in nature. So I've been a little bit reluctant to pick it up, but we do have the next, I think, 3 books in the series, if not the next 4 books in the series. So it will be something I will return to in the future, just not something I wanted to pick up right away, and definitely something I enjoyed that my wife recommended to me. So a good read. Question number 4 is...
Fourth question is, do you have a comic that is your favorite?
It's going to come off a little repetitive to talk once again about One Piece, but this truly is my favorite comic book series of all time. It is just a sprawling epic, amazing characters, a really fun world with crazy powers, and just the most absurd things happen in this comic. I absolutely love it. I did a reread of the entire series last year, and I did some ranking videos and things like that if you want to go check those out. But definitely my favorite comic book series is One Piece. I love it very much. And 107 is out now, and I haven't picked it up yet, but I'm very excited to do so soon. Egghead Island has been a really fun change of pace, a change of scenery that I was not expecting from the series, but because it's done so many wild things, it does kind of fit. I'm also going to talk about Alice in Borderland, which I recently picked up. I picked this up after doing my video on gambling fiction, gambling manga, and had mentioned that Alice in Borderland was one of the titles that I hadn't picked up yet and hadn't gotten into. We watched the TV series for a while. We got up to a very depressing point in the series, and then we kind of gave up on it because it was such a downer ending to the episode. I've since read farther in the manga series, and it's getting to a point where there is kind of a meta game going on, a meta story going on. So I've read through the collected larger volumes 1 and 2, which would be the first 4 volumes of like the Japanese copies, and it ended on a cliffhanger. I'm very invested in picking up the next volume, and this is definitely a series that I want to see through to the end. Question number 5 is,
I was wondering if you would have a cute book.
This question comes from my son, and a cute book that I have read recently is the Emily Wilde series. This is the second book in the series, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, and I find this to be one of the more endearing romanticities that I look at. I think that Emily's relationship with Wendell is very cute, and I love their dynamic together. I think that pretty much every phase of their relationship has been very endearing and had these really adorable moments. It's less of an enemies to lover thing, more of an annoyance to lover thing. But Emily has such a interesting perspective and such a strong voice in these books that it's a lot of fun seeing her try to navigate falling in love and being romantic with someone, that it just ends up that all their scenes together have this very adorable flair to them, and I really like the two of them together. So this would be my pick for cutest book that I've read in recent memory. Question number 6 is,
Would you have a fun book?
I was trying to think of a fun book, like an adventure book, and something that's like got a little bit of comedy to it, and I landed on Guards by Terry Pratchett. I believe this was the second in the Watch series that I read from Terry Pratchett. I think I read Thud first, so I basically started reading them in reverse order. I really need to go back and read all of these chronologically, but I think that this is an excellent series that expertly combines the fantasy elements with the comedy elements. Terry Pratchett has that kind of dry British humor that I find really enjoyable, but is not so much of an absurdist like Douglas Adams. I enjoy Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I can definitely see where people would not jive with that. It strikes a nice balance between telling a fun and engaging fantasy story with interesting characters that you can identify with, but also having that humor and kind of that meta narrative of, I think at one point they have something akin to cell phones, and they're learning about firearms in one of the books. Their relationships and the way that they play off of each other is just a lot of fun. So I think for both the action, adventure, fantasy element of it being a very fun story and the humor really working for me, this is probably one of the most fun books that I own. And then finally, question number 7 is,
If you had another great book,
and I wanted to make sure that I found a really great book, one that I enjoyed immensely. And so I was looking through my shelves, looking through all my fantasy and fiction, and I wasn't really finding anything. And I went over to my nonfiction shelf, and I found one that I think is a lot of fun and a really great book, and that is What If by Randall Munroe. There's also a What If 2. This is the creator of XKCD, basically taking absolutely absurd scenarios and wild what ifs that he gets sent to him and applying the mathematics to it and running the numbers and really telling you, okay, what would happen if you threw a baseball the speed of light? What would happen if you tried to build a jetpack out of machine guns? Could it actually lift you off the ground? It's got this really simple, cartoony style that I think really melds well with the subject matter of just taking these science questions that are absolutely ridiculous and trying to arrive at a conclusion. I also appreciate that there are several of these questions where the answer is kind of ho-hum. And so he'll tell you the answer is like, boop, nothing really happens. And then he'll go, so what would we have to do to make it more exciting? And he'll keep like ramping it up and talking about if you make it worse and worse, if you add more and more explosives, or you increase gravity, or you make something even faster, then what would it do? Because the actual answer to the stated question was not exciting, so he wants to make it entertaining. Definitely the epitome of infotainment in my mind. Something that if you're at all interested in physics or science, or just the process of applying your thinking to these wild abstract ideas, it's a good read. So I'm not quite sure what to do at this point, because normally this would be the part of the video where I would tag other people, but I'm certainly not going to tag others in my children's random questions that they came up with while recording a video. But if you found any of these questions compelling or interesting, I would encourage people to talk to their kids, talk to their young relatives, nieces or nephews, and see if they have any interesting questions about books. And if you want to take this and run with it, sure, go for it. But it really was more of a fun thing to do, because I was just listening to their questions and thinking, you know, that's not bad. Like, I could do something with this for sure. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope your reading journey is going well. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so we can grow this corner of our BookTube community. Feel free to answer any of these questions in the comments if you have ideas of what is your favorite comic, or what is a book you think is cute. Let me know down below. We can start a dialogue. I hope your reading journey is going well, and until the next one, take care.